Merriam-Webster defines Titan as any of a family of giants in Greek mythology, born of Uranus and Gaia, and ruling the earth until overthrown by the Olympians. There are therefore no actual Titans in these films. We watched Remember the Titans and Clash of the Titans.
Hey everyone, welcome to Citizen Kane Versus, where we compare a widely considered great movie with a movie that is widely considered to be more on the schlocky side. And we ask ourselves honestly, which is better? As you caught in that opening, the link this week is, well, the words "The Titans." That's the link. The stranger the link, almost the better. These were two completely ridiculous movies to compare, having watched them both.
Yeah.
But I love that so much.
There was a connecting through line though. There was during Denzel's speech to the Titans.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that? Where he's
Yep.
like, the Titans were better than even the gods, and I was like,
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. So we found it this week. We actually got there.
Yeah.
He wraps up that speech by just like laying out the movie title too. So it was a great moment in that film. I'd say the message of the film.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my
God.
I don't think it. I don't think that's the message at all. Actually.
No. Yeah. That the message of Remember the Titans is Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Is overall.
The message of Remember the Titans is remember those pasty white men.
Yeah, they're like, what about Liam Neeson though?
Yeah.
That's the thing to take away from Remember the Titans.
Ralph Fiennes has been, just chastised his whole career for who he is. So.
Okay. Also, I want to just clarify one thing. Is it Rafe Fiennes or Ralph Fiennes?
It's Rafe.
It's Rafe, right? But is it spelled R-A-L-P-H or R-A? Okay. So he's okay.
Blame the Welsh.
I have some very distinct thoughts on that, but we'll move on.
Yeah, it's one of those names you're like, you see it, and you're like, your name is Ralph Fiennes, and he's like, I'm Rafe Fiennes, and you're like, well,
and you're like, you can go to hell.
Yeah. Go to Hades, more like it.
Oh man, you're quick this week.
That was good. That was good.
Watch it, everyone. I watched the movie.
Oof.
I actually had to watch this movie twice. I don't know if I had to watch Clash twice because I started falling asleep the first time around. But definitely better the second watch. I will say definitely better the second watch. Marginally, but
so it has a slight advantage this week with 1.5 viewings.
Exactly.
A slight advantage.
We've had more opportunity for data collection.
Meanwhile, Sean, you've watched Remember the Titans, like you said, like 200 times in your life.
Well, because when I was 10 or 11, when this film came out, it was the go-to film for all of my teachers when they just didn't want to teach today. They would just put on this film. So I've probably seen it 20 times, easy. But I forgot most of this film, and it was lovely to reconnect. And I was telling Aaron this morning, and I feel really bad, but it's kind of an indicator of where I was growing up, in that I didn't remember any of the racial stuff in the film. I just remembered it as this football movie. And now I'm feeling real bad about that.
I had the same reaction.
Yeah, same. I saw this movie a bunch of times. Like, this was a thing they'd put on they'd play on the bus on like a 6-hour drive to like summer camp. They'd put on Remember the Titans. Same thing. I forgot that it's really entirely about race, and I remember a football movie, which is
It's so funny that Sean's like, I forgot all the racial stuff, and I'm like, oh, you mean the movie? You forgot the movie?
Yeah. No, yeah. I have no qualifications to judge movies anymore if I forgot this movie. But I will anyways for the podcast.
It says something about nostalgia though, right?
Yeah.
How we can be so caught up in something that it's like, oh, I watched it again, and I really forgot how much it did, X or Y.
Yeah.
But what I will say is I also really appreciated that this was a movie that Disney put out kind of for kids 10 years ago. And the themes and the messages in this movie are incredibly powerful and kind of what kids need to be exposed to more. Right. So while I didn't remember much of it, I did appreciate the fact that was what they were trying to get across to kids my age, when it came out.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll give
there's a small I just want to quickly address the small irony of like literally we're like, I couldn't remember the Titans at all.
Yeah.
Like they were trying to tell us something and we didn't listen.
And
I remembered the team. I remembered the.
I forgot Ryan Gosling. So
yeah.
Okay,
Totally
we'll get into that, but I have.
Sean.
Yeah.
I think Sean should give us a rundown because he has a summary. Help us out.
Give you an intro. Yeah, so Remember the Titans, classic film we all remember. It follows the story of Coach Boone, who, when the high schools in Virginia are integrated shortly during the Civil Rights Movement, he is assigned as head coach of a traditionally white high school, and the town is fraught with racial division. And it's his struggle and really the whole team's struggle to overcome their own prejudices, and then through victory and through their combined effort kind of show the town that the integration is a beautiful thing and that the hatred doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and it tackles, like we kind of already hinted at, like it tackles integration. There's like busing, like really forcibly ending segregation. There's all issues that are tackled in this sports movie. Yeah,
that's great. Daniel, do you want to give a rundown of the brilliant
we
chose to go against?
Do I ever? Yeah. So Remember the Titans competitor this week was Clash of the Titans, which is it's a fantasy film that is very loosely based on the Greek myth of Perseus. Very, very loosely based. It is starring Sam Worthington playing a 35-year-old, 17-year-old Perseus, and Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort with long hair.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So the story goes that in the land of Argos, man has declared war on the gods, which their first kind of striking blow is breaking down a statue of Zeus, to which Hades, the god of the underworld, responds and attacks these soldiers, and ends up also killing Perseus's family in the attack. So Perseus is taken in by those soldiers, brought back to Argos, and essentially once we learn very quickly that Perseus is a demigod, the son of Zeus. And once the people of Argos find that out, they send him on a journey with the King's Guard to basically find out how to kill the Kraken, which is an ancient elemental beast that Hades has threatened to unleash on Argos unless the city decides to sacrifice their princess Andromeda. And just ridiculous things happen from there, which we'll get into, but that is essentially the meat of the story.
Yeah, and then it kind of jumps around through various like sort of loose stories from the mythology of Perseus.
Yeah, like there I looked it up, and there was like the Medusa thing was there.
Yeah, that's the main one.
Yeah, the Medusa thing was there, but so how they integrated it with the Kraken, I guess kind of made sense. But then I was trying to research the Kraken, and that wasn't actually even like a superstition or like a myth until like the 1800s for sailors. So this movie, I don't know. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's a remake of an old movie that's even more of a classic of either of these movies. And I think, Sean, you're more familiar with that classic, and I think you've said already in private that it's more familiar, yeah. But it's actually
more
quite
familiar in that it was on once.
Yeah, but like it's almost like shot for shot. Like they didn't try and revamp it that much. Is that what you said?
I can't speak to like how exact the shot is, but it definitely the chess game. There are some stark differences that I'd forgotten. There, like basically, you know how there are all the little figurines in Zeus's chamber.
Yeah, they represent the people on Earth and all that stuff.
Yeah, so that's a huge part of the OG Clash of the Titans,
right?
Because it really is all the gods up there playing a game with these pieces and like sending the ship astray kind of thing.
Right.
And then I forgot about that owl. I think its name's like Babu or something. Remember, he pulls the owl out. He's like, "What's this thing?"
Yes.
And Sir Davos tells him to leave it there. And so that owl is from the original movie. It's like a key part of.
I remember that.
So that was just a reference to the original, because I was wondering why the fuck they'd introduce that and then never reference it again.
It was just a total throwaway.
Yeah,
just for those big Clash of the Titans fans
Clash
that were coming to see this one, the Clash heads.
Yeah,
of which I'm sure there are a lot, because you know what, this movie had a lot of downfalls, and it was just a ridiculous, bizarre film. But I loved it. I had a great time. I had a great time with this film. To me, this was like, I've been saying this all week. This was the first week where I was like, thank God we have two actually enjoyable movies to watch.
Yeah.
They were both watchable. There's no question about it. I mean, Clash for me is tricky because I really love Greek mythology. And I'm like fairly familiar with it. So watching this is like, there are moments when I'm just like, but separate from that, just as a movie, it starts quite well, even though there's like some ridiculous things, like all the aging of people is like super weird, which I want to talk about. But the movie kind of gets worse as it goes. I found it, to me, it kind of spins its tires at the end.
The end completely falls apart. The climactic battle scene between the Kraken and Perseus is not fun to watch. Really.
What battle scene?
Done really quickly. Hades pops up.
None of the battle scenes are fun to watch. Let's be absolutely clear.
I don't know.
They're all terribly shot. I'll argue this right away. Sure. You never know what is going on. They are awful. They are the worst part of the movie, and they're like the thing.
The stuff when they're battling Perseus's like beast dad, I thought was pretty fun. Like the scorpion stuff sucked, and the Medusa stuff was like a dumpster fire. But I don't know. I thought the scene where the dad rips that soldier in half and then it goes.
Oh, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, there were some cool moments.
Yeah, that's a cool moment. But it was one of those things, like they had introduced this squadron of soldiers. You know, like Perseus is sent off with the remaining top soldiers of Argos to go and get Medusa's, right? They have to
go to the witches to figure out how to kill the Kraken, and the witches are like, you gotta go see Medusa.
Go to Medusa.
Which is like part of the mythology, by the way. That is like loosely part of the story.
So most of the movie is about that quest, right? And so we get introduced to this gang of heroes, and it's hard not to fixate on them more and think of them as being more important than they were, because it's a who's who of actors that exploded into being. But whenever they were in the fights, so I'd assume that, you know, Nicholas Hoult is important because he's Nicholas Hoult, but then it was like Nicholas Hoult. And whenever someone died, I was like, wait, who was that? Wait, who died? Sir Davos dies, and I have no
idea. Did that happen?
When he dies, when Medusa first shows up and
shoots an arrow,
and
he falls.
Three of them fall off the bridge, but Sir Davos dies, and then Perseus grabs the rock Jin and saves him.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah, and I was pissed. So I was pissed. I'm just gonna leap to the very end.
I feel like Sean needs a tattoo that just says I was pissed.
Zeus resurrects Io so that Perseus can have his girlfriend with him, but then he doesn't resurrect like Miles Mikkelsen or Sir Davos or any of the like actual cool people that he was traveling with. Go to hell.
Yeah. Mads Mikkelsen is also the coolest person in this movie.
He's the best.
He gets all the good lines and he knows how to act.
I mean, I don't know, guys. Hades was pretty cool.
I'm not gonna lie. Watching Ralph Fiennes and Liam Neeson try to bombast each other as these Greek gods was super fun. I was down for every minute. Yeah.
Well, see, that's what I loved about this film, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of days, because on the one hand I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, everything in this movie is bizarre, but then I went back and looked at the story and the Greek mythology, and I'm like, oh, everything in mythology is bizarre. It's all over the top. It's all just crazy huge.
Yeah.
So the fact that these guys are essentially doing like a Shakespearean performance of just this performative, like, I'm a greater god than you. I loved it so much. And it was insane, but it was also like right. What's the word I'm looking for? It was right on brand with what they were supposed to be, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think they're funny because like Ralph Fiennes, I'm a big fan of Ralph. I was like, he must have already been doing Harry Potter by this time.
He just finished. Yeah.
Well, because it was 2010, right? This movie came out?
So
done?
I think they were done.
They would have had to have been, yeah.
So he was still doing his very best Voldemort thing.
Yeah.
And Liam Neeson is an actor who I think if he's not invested in it, I think he can't fake being in a movie he doesn't care about. Like if you go back and watch like the Phantom Menace and stuff, he's terrible. In the movies that he's good, he's great because he cares. He can't just like step up and do it without. And like this movie, he's like, you can call me father. Like, like it's like, he's just like.
I thought he was great in this movie. I didn't think he was phoning it in at all. I actually watched it.
Watching him phone in is great.
The second time I watched it through, both times I was like, oh, Liam Neeson is like really stepping it up in this movie. To answer
just
your
question, the chemistry between him and Sam Worthington, it really is like.
I mean, wow. I think this brings us to a really interesting point in that it must be impossible to have chemistry with Sam Worthington in any scene if you're anybody. He was awful. I have in one of my notes, I think he went to the Matthew McConaughey School of Acting where you can't do anything actually on voice. Everything has to be down here. And like my note is like
except when you're yelling.
Except when you're yelling, yeah. Too. But I wrote down, I was like, I wonder if any actor can actually ever hear what he's saying when they're doing a scene with him, because everything is whispered.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And it's just all bad. It's I would say it's hard to explain, but I think we'll be able to explain it all actually. Like he just his cocky, smirky, like non-responsive thing does not translate to the everyman that some actors have been able to get away with. You know what I mean? Where Keanu Reeves like doesn't do anything and Ryan Gosling doesn't do anything, and some people are like, I see myself in your nothingness. It doesn't work with this guy.
Well, because he's doing the cliche version of what that is. He's not actually being natural everyman. He's doing like the I'm brooding thing for like most of the time, right? And it also doesn't fit because he's supposed to be a brooding teenager and he's like in his 40s. Yeah. So I don't understand.
He thinks that the brooding face means that he is interesting because there must be some turmoil rather than actually finding a turmoil and becoming brooding because of it.
Yeah.
But like he was taking all the moments that were like when someone tried to be lighthearted with him, he gets really serious. And then in the moments where people are trying to get him to be serious, he gets all like smirky and cocky. And it's like, oh, we're supposed to believe like with these other soldiers that they bonded with you. No. I don't like you.
Yeah, like, I was pretty sure that Mads Mikkelsen was just going to continue to hate him for the film because why would they bond at all?
Well, he kind of did though. He like they kind of implied that Mads Mikkelsen never really liked him. Like remember the moment where the witches tell him that he's going to die at the end of his quest, and they have that shot of Mads Mikkelsen's reaction, and he's just like, and he looks kind of happy about it.
Right, yeah. Well, because he's in love with Andromeda, and the movie was trying to make Andromeda and him happy, or get together. Except they also had the Io love storyline in there too. So like their objectification is just varied and not focused.
Wait,
at
the
all.
Movie was trying to have Perseus and Andromeda get together?
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't get that at all.
Oh, I think that's supposed to be part of the mythology, doesn't?
Well,
he saves her, and then they get
married. Yeah, they get married in the mythology. But the only time I remember them even having any kind of connection is when he saves her from the water at the very end of the movie.
And they're holding hands somehow when they come out. So like, and then there's also like at the beginning, she comes up and gives him the cup, and Mads Mikkelsen is like jealous, which is why he like punches it out of his hand.
Hands off.
Yeah. So they never had them actually in the same scene except for those two moments. So there was no chance to actually fulfill that. But they were definitely like setting it up. I haven't seen Wrath, so I don't know if Andromeda comes back and Io dies again or something.
I mean, you should see Wrath. You should absolutely see Wrath. That is a great movie. I've told you guys this. That
when we do Grapes of Wrath versus Wrath of the Titans,
I'm in.
That is actually amazing.
All right, we'll put it on the list.
Great.
But also the romantic thing with Io, or however they were pronouncing her name.
It was Io.
Io was also like weird, like their love, but she was always trying to be like, hey, can you focus on doing stuff? And he was like, what if we flirt? And she's like, I've been watching you since you were a baby. And he was like, you're into me, huh? Like, it was all wrong. Like, it all never read as like romance, as opposed to like a guy really not understanding what this person was trying to do.
Well, and the one moment where she's trying to train him and prep him for Medusa.
Yo, I couldn't.
That was the most awkward thing I've ever seen. I actually cringed. Because she's like, don't look at me. And immediately he stares her directly in the face. And then they have this really, really poorly choreographed moment where he like spins her under his arm and then like pushes her to the bed or the ground or whatever it is. And just stares at her exactly like you said, Jack, where it's such like, you want to fuck me eyes. And she's like, cool it, dude.
He's like, when you're fighting, this won't work.
Yeah. He's like, don't have so much fun. She's like, I'm actually trying to save your life. Keep it in your pants.
Stop flirting with me.
Yeah.
At least it was kind of consistent, because he did not receive any of that training. It did not work.
No.
And then when they got to Medusa, they didn't act like he had taken in any of that training. So it worked just fine. They fucking ran around like idiots and barely pulled it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like suddenly he had trained. Yeah.
I was in and out at points for reasons of obvious nature.
How dare you.
And I wasn't sure if I'd missed something where a character was like, if you look in Medusa's eyes, you will be turned to stone and die. Because all of them in that final scene, they'd hear a noise and just turn and look at what that noise was. Like,
yeah. I mean, the witches very clearly outlined why they were going to Medusa's lair, which I was also unclear why anybody else under any other circumstances for any other reason would want to go to Medusa's lair. Her den was like littered with the stone bodies of soldiers who had tried to come in there. And I couldn't for the life of me think of another reason why anybody would want to go there.
Yeah.
At like the perimeter of the underworld. It didn't make any sense to me. But yes, John, you're totally right. I thought it was hilarious that the scene right before Nicholas Hoult dies, and his buddy's like, don't look her in the eyes down, and then turns around and just like follows her face all the way up.
Oopsies.
And then the laser beam shot out of her eyes and turned him to stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those dumb things where like he gave them a rousing speech before heading in, and they were like, yeah, we're ready to die for this. And it's like, cool speech. Do you want to make a plan? Do you want to move together back to back? Do you want to?
He did have a plan. He did give them a plan. His plan was, don't look this bitch in the eyes.
Yeah, right.
That was his plan. His rousing speech was fantastic, by the way. Go ahead, Sean.
What did the hunters accomplish in this film?
Yeah, I wanted more from them. There are like these two hunters that show up. It's actually a fun moment when they're about to leave Argos, and they show up and mean like, "We can hunt. Do you know how to take the skin off of the what is it? The Nemean lion and all this kind of stuff?" And Mads Mikkelsen is like, "If you know how to fight and you don't mind dying, you can come."
Yeah.
And it's like, all right. But then they fight some scorpions and then they disappear.
They trained a scorpion as well, because
is that what happened?
They tamed one of the scorpions by the end of the movie, which they're walking a gigantic deadly scorpion through the most narrow part of
like
town.
Populous.
Yeah, like crowded with people, and no one's batting an eye.
Is that? Oh, this is my question about those scorpions. Are they naturally occurring to the desert landscape? Because I assumed that those lizard folk in the jinn in the desert had like somehow harnessed the power of this beast, and that's how they had them already. Like 3 seconds after the fight was done, they were already on their like merchant caravan of scorpions. I thought that was just their like. Go ahead. Sorry.
So the scorpions came from the blood and the hand of Perseus's beast dad. So they had that moment where you see the hand turning into the scorpion, and they have like the drops of blood burning into the sand, and then suddenly
I remember that. So which is why I'm confused, because then so you're telling me that within 30 seconds of encountering these wild, untamed, ferocious, murderous beast lizard monsters, that they managed to do what it took all of humanity tens of thousands of years to do and domesticate it?
Sean, what do? Are you expecting the main character to solve his own problems or something? No, someone else has to show up and miraculously fix it. It's a movie.
Yeah. But I was very unclear as to what the story with the Jinn was, just in general. I just gathered that they were like old people that had just been in the desert long enough that they developed superpowers.
They were like an ancient arcane people that had whatever knowledge was necessary for the time.
Right.
It was like it was literally a thing where like it wasn't enough to have actual gods to perform Deus Ex Machinas. They needed other characters to do that. Because again, I want to reiterate, Sam Worthington, Perseus, does not solve any of his own problems in this movie.
Like literally none, to the point where the gods have to literally send him weapons and a Pegasus. The Pegasus was so loosely explained, and only because the Pegasus is like part of the Perseus mythology, but they give no reason as to why it's actually there in the movie.
No.
And I kind of loved it. What I also was thrown by was the one remaining Jinn. So after they go see the witches, they're told that Perseus is going to die. So the group of Jinn that has been accompanying them on their journey decide to leave, with the exception of one guy who believes that the only way to beat the gods is to help Perseus and work together, as he says.
Together.
Yeah. And then he has a grenade for a heart.
Dan, look.
I wasn't totally, and which also accomplished nothing. By the way, nothing at all.
Yeah, he chow-sued the shit out of that right there.
Yeah, but it did make her pause, because she didn't know why she wasn't turning this punk to stone, and so then he was like, and his General Grievous heart did its thing.
His General Grievous heart. I also wanted to take a second to talk about the fact that the CGI in this movie, of which there is a bunch, for the most part, wasn't terrible.
Pretty great, except for Medusa.
It was, except for Medusa.
Medusa was like end of their production budget. Let's just get the people who did Scorpion King.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was going to say. For anyone who's seen the very first version of the Scorpion King, it was like on par.
Which has to be also one of our movies.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. It's up there with like, is this supposed to look like a real creature? Yeah, like the scorpions look great.
The scorpions look great. All the backdrops, except for when they're in the storm. When they're in the storm at the beginning, that looks really bad.
Scorpion.
Sorry? Oh, Sean's cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, they were in the storm. Oh, okay. How about now?
Yeah, we got you.
Internet connect. Okay, we're back. The storm was a bit rough, and Medusa was a bit rough. But I also wanted to add on to at least the visual stuff here. The makeup and sets was phenomenal. I bought every single like actual physical effect they had. It was fantastic.
Yeah, they did a lot of practical stuff that I appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, generally it was. No, sorry, go ahead.
Of like Charon's boat and stuff like that, like journeying into the underworld. I'm like, they made this. Like they made a boat come through the fog. Like that was a real thing. Like
that looks super cool.
Yeah,
super cool.
I appreciate that stuff so much. Yeah, and they did the stuff which is like how I think like the way if you want to use CGI in a movie where they would have like a shot that panned up through like real like old time looking stairs and columns and people, and then it would crest over the top of it and reveal the grander landscape of Argos, and it just like helps you as a viewer, your brain be tricked, and they did some of that stuff really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Yeah, even right down to like the Kraken, it was clearly CGI, but even the quality of that thing, it looked pretty bananas. The one thing I will say about the makeup, and I don't know if this is just me, am I the only one who felt like Io was getting like 14 shades paler every scene she showed up in? She was a straight up vampire by the end of that movie.
It didn't help that they put all the female characters in this film in purity white, except for Cassiopeia, who was in like I'm a bitch orange.
Was that the king's wife?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. They couldn't have made her more of a bitch. Also,
she dies though. Horrific Last Crusade death.
Yeah, and that whole scene when Hades first shows up is actually pretty badass. He
sucks all the soldiers into his swirling mass, and then.
Yeah, although I thought it was funny that he sucks all the soldiers up around Sam Worthington, but like not there isn't even a piece of his clothing that like shakes in the wind, like nothing, doesn't budge at all.
Okay, so can I ask? So is that how they know that he's a demigod?
No, they know he's a demigod because right before Hades leaves, he stares right into Perseus's eyes and says, Zeus, your father. Like he outlines it right to him.
Yeah.
Oh really? Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. My question was, how the fuck did Hades know who Sam Worthington was, and how did Zeus not know that he had a baby?
Look, he had lots of babies with lots of people.
I also want to point out that I think it's hilarious that humanity is waging war on the gods, and Zeus's response is, "I'm going to bang your wife."
That's actually a plot point from a previous movie that we watched.
I thought it was so funny.
If you're Zeus, like, yeah, you can smite people, but being smit, like, once you're smoted, it's over. There's no fun for Zeus at that point. So if you impregnate someone's wife, then you can have a little laugh for a few years after.
But that's my thing. He impregnates his wife. Like, it looks like she goes into labor right away, but then
super sperm baby.
Yeah, but then he has no idea that Perseus exists when I guess it's Apollo or one of the other gods tells him later.
Mm-hmm.
How
many kids does he have in mythology, Jack?
Oh my god, I couldn't tell you. It's like dozens. Yeah,
at least two. I know it's at least two. I know it's Perseus and Hercules.
At least two. Yes, but there's a bunch. I believe Theseus is also. So Achilles is a son of. We're supposed to be Sarpedon. There's all kinds of people who are of godly descent in Greek mythology through various rapings and consensual sexings and stuff. Yeah, but.
I want to give a.
But this is the only one. Sorry, this is the only one where the actual Greek mythology, how Perseus is made is actually through the Immaculate Conception from Zeus through a golden shower.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I looked that up. It's true.
Most Greek historians are wise to phrase it as a shower of gold, but let's be real. It's a golden shower.
That is hilarious. And if they had done that in this movie, it wouldn't have been any less or any more ridiculous than what they actually did. That would have actually been quite as fitting.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sean.
I wanted to give a shout out to Peter Postlethwaite in this film, who plays his like adopted father, who was the most grounded and like empathetic character in the entire film, just because Peter Postlethwaite was like one of the best actors we had, and I think this was like his last film before he passed away.
Was it?
I think so. It's around like 2011 was when he passed, and this came out in like 2010, 2011. So it might have been his last one. And even in this schlocky, largely bad but like fun movie, he's still just like nailing home runs, and I love that man.
Also, that's like the biggest aging thing we talk about. Like, I think Perseus is supposed to be like 22 or something like that. He was in his mid-20s.
There's no way, because he has that scene the first time we see him. He has that scene with his dad where he's holding his chest and he's like, "I'll never have a brother, or I'll have a brother and a sister soon." and you will never love me the way you love them, or whatever it is. And then it's 12 years later. And in that scene, he's got to be maybe he's like 10.
I think he's like 10. I think it's like a 10-year-old, and then he becomes like 22. But it also means that his dad looks exactly the same from when he found him as a baby. So literally 22 years have gone by, and this guy looks like the same haggard old dude that he was before.
I think they tinted the beard a little bit.
Oh, a little? Oh, there you go. Never mind. Sorry. Fuck me, huh?
Oh, dear. Any last words before we throw it off to a commercial break, gents?
I mean, words about this movie, because I still have things that were ridiculous. I just want to throw out before we, in case we leave it forever, that they're like on this journey to go see the witches, and like that's further than any person from Argos has ever gone before. And they're like, how far away is it? About 3 days. Like no one from this civilization had traveled beyond 3 days away from their home. It's like, what?
Oh, amazing.
All right. Well, here's possibly a real or possibly a fake product that you can buy. See you on the other side.
So, is it safe to go outside now?
It sure is.
Well, do I need to wear a mask or anything?
No.
I'm so happy I could kiss a stranger.
Go do that.
This is the best news ever.
This message is brought to you by the novel coronavirus.
Hey, and welcome back. So, we've talked quite a bit about Clash of the Titans. Clearly, we have some positive feelings about it, some negative feelings about it. But let's talk about Remember the Titans a bit now. Let's talk about things that we liked, anything that we might have disliked in that movie. Any thoughts? Go ahead.
I loved this movie from beginning to end. I was trying desperately to find like jokey bits that I could write about this thing, and like I couldn't really. The one thing I just kept writing was, I love me some scrawny, charming Ryan Gosling. Why is Ryan Gosling not acting anymore? Why did he? Why is it that the more jacked he gets, the less he does stuff on screen? That was my biggest that was my biggest gripe with this film, was just how much I loved a young, kind of scrawny, nerdy, but really charming Ryan Gosling. And I was like, where is that guy? It was like Breaker High Ryan Gosling, but a bit older and like cooler, but like not super like brooding cool.
And like hilariously small for a football movie.
Yeah.
Like real, Rick, we're talking, not like
big head still.
And also like doesn't play any real role in the story except to give Petey a bit of a redemption arc at the very end of the film.
Yeah. And he, like you said, he's more dweeby than we see him now. Right now he's always this cool guy, but like his character in the movie is like he enjoys quirky music, and then he starts to quirkily enjoy the music of his new black teammates, and that's essentially just like how media can influence change or something. Like, it's also funny that we're starting by talking about Ryan Gosling in this movie, first of all. But
well, that
was good job, us.
Sorry, that was the first thing that stuck out to me. But I mean, the obvious thing also that we touched on at the very beginning was just the fact that like this movie kicks off with racial protests.
Yeah,
like from go, this movie is obviously about racial segregation in the 60s, which none of us remembered.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I thought it was handled really well. I thought some of the lines they gave Denzel Washington in this movie were fucking just brilliant. Like the whole sequence between him and the guy from Clueless. What's his name? The guy who played Petey. Does anyone know that actor's name?
I don't know his name.
But you know, like he's been in a ton of stuff. The guy from Scrubs.
Donald Faison.
Donald Faison?
Yeah.
That's a great name. But that first scene where he shows up as a coach and they have the whole like, oh, football's fun, eh? Football's fun? You still having fun? And he's like, oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, that's great.
So good. And then the who's your daddy bit outside the bus. Now who's your daddy, Gary? you know who your daddy is. Like I thought it was. Anyways.
I think best line of the film though goes to assistant coach Yost for jump on that ball like a starving man on a Christmas ham.
I didn't even catch that.
It's in the like training montage when they're at the camp in the first act of the film. and he screams at someone to jump on that ball like a starving man on a Christmas ham.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Now, okay,
but he says it with a Virginian accent.
Of course. You mentioned
what did that sound like, Sean?
Oh, yeah, please, Sean.
Nope.
Sean, you're an accomplished and classically trained actor. I think that you owe us an accent.
You've heard my Southern. It's not accomplished nor classically trained.
The benefit of our viewers, our listeners or viewers, we'll spare them this time, but next time we'll get them. But we mentioned the training montage, and I think like this is something with current events and with increased hindsight and increased awareness. We watch this movie, and I think it's quite affecting. I think not just only the racial topics, but also just like a football movie now has different connotations, and like watching like. It's like I feel it's like, oh, this is a positive story about improving race relations, but then all the football stuff is like, oh, like even my girlfriend was like, and concussion.
Yeah. That's what I wrote down. I was like, the messages and the themes in this movie are so powerful. It almost has little to do with football, but it also really highlights some of the very problematic aspects of that sport,
like torturing young people and making them throw up.
Because these are high school students, and the amount of just injuries that these people are being subjected to, and all the crazy training methods, which I mean, like, are kind of understandable given what the coach is trying to accomplish in this film.
Yeah.
Well, can you think in Canada if there was a school teacher who screamed at the kids, made them work out until they puked, and generally just like shat on them every time they screwed up, how quickly would that person lose their job?
Now,
but
you forget that in the 60s, teachers were allowed to like hit their students, right? So there is that.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said though of like. Even though it's like it doesn't look great, it's like they've kind of signed up for it. Like I think they know what a football camp is like, and so you could argue that. But also in terms of like what was trying to be accomplished in terms of bringing these people together, of like adversity is one of those things. It's like, you know, we had differences, but we all struggled through this together.
Literally putting them through the trenches together to form a bond. Like it was kind of the best way to do it. So, but I mean, just watching how much the coaches encouraged aggression and like channeling anger and encouraging players to like take out other players and other teams. It was like these kids are 16 and 17 years old, and they're all getting brain damage right now.
Yeah.
And maybe 5% will go on to do this professionally. That was the big thing. Every time I watched it, I was like, oh, every time I watched a hit, I was like, fuck, that's bad. Exact concussion, like broken wrist, whatever that is.
And you mentioned that one speech where he's like, you got fear or you got anger. Good. This is about channeling your fear into like your opponent. And I was like, what?
Can't we just play tag team touch football?
Yeah. This movie about like brotherly love and like, don't forget to crush the enemy.
Yeah. It was brutal.
Well, I think it did a good job in presenting Coach Boone as an imperfect protagonist.
Yeah.
Who is doing, like, he's there doing the right thing, but the tactics he uses to do that right thing are often troubling and maybe wrong.
But again, I mean, first of all, I'm curious to know if anyone looked up the actual true story that this is based on, because I want to know how much of that is factual and how much of that is.
Largely what they fictionalize. I'm not sure so much about like the individual people's lives, but it seems like what they fictionalized was the year of integration of that school board was actually 1965, but they bumped it to 1971 to heighten the stakes of having an integrated football team. They went undefeated, but most of the games were actual like blowout shutouts for them. They just like annihilated every single team they came across, except the team that they played in this movie. They played them in the finals, but they actually played them in like week 7 or something of their regular season. And that game was true. They were behind and they did a like 4th down running come from behind play to win the game.
Right.
But the final game that they showed here should have been, I think it was like a 27-0 blowout.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I also thought it was funny that they placed the movie in 1971, but a lot of the music from the soundtrack, which I loved, by the way, felt very 60s. It felt like mid to late 60s.
Well, I mean, it's the music that they've grown up with as they were maturing. So you bring those songs along with you.
Yeah, because like
guys.
You can't have the music from the 70s, 71. It hasn't happened yet. All right, Dan.
Whatever. Screw you both.
You just turned such a shade of red.
Did I? Well, because I'm embarrassed that I presented such a stupid point, obviously.
Why is it in the year 2000 there was all this Christina Aguilera, whatnot?
Shut up, Jack.
Nailed it, Dan.
Nailed it.
Hayden Panettiere. Best I've ever seen her.
And the chemistry between her and Boone was like phenomenal in that one scene where they're watching the plays together. I thought it was so good.
Yeah.
Although
she's awesome.
Yeah. Although to your point, Sean, about kind of painting Boone as like an imperfect protagonist, I thought the first exchange between him and Hayden Panettiere was actually kind of weird and out of left field, where she shows up and she's this like young youthful kid who's against the stereotype of a little blonde girl who's all into football, and his response is, why don't you get that little girl some dolls?
And I was like this man who one of the reviews said that he was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. mixed with some big football name, so that's a great role. But he's also got these sorry, I'm going to start that again.
We'll cut this part out, it's fine.
So he's supposed to, they talk about how he marched with Martin Luther King, and so he's got these ideas of civil rights that are obviously human rights and wholly agreeable with, but he's also got these deeply entrenched sex and gender norms that are coloring his everyday life too.
Which again, I think is indicative of the time, right?
Well, and of the South, and of a deeply religious South.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like those things are very much entrenched in those communities. So
now, somebody remind me here, because they have the scene where is it Yost? That's his name?
Yost.
Yeah. Gets the news that he's losing his job to Boone. And then they cut to the next shot or the next scene of Boone talking to, I guess his manager or a representative from the school board.
Yeah,
saying, I left my last position because I got passed over for a job that I really deserved. And now you're asking me to do that to this guy. That's not fair. Yeah. And then the next scene, it's him being like, well, you can work for me if you want, but I'm taking this job. And I wasn't sure, but is this the scene where he's talking to the school board rep? That scene ends with him going outside and seeing his lawn full of his black neighbors applauding him, right? So is that supposed to be the impetus for him taking the job because he realizes what he means or what he represents to that community? Is that?
I think so.
Okay.
I want to call out also, because I think I'm going to be the person who I also enjoyed this movie a lot. I think I'm gonna have more gripes with it than either of you, and like the certain like Disney things of it, which are good. Like they're making something that's like viewable for the whole family, and that's super important. But doesn't mean I'm not going to make fun of things of like, how do we make this person a hero? Well, everyone claps for him, pats on the back, and everyone's just like smiling and cheering and clapping. It's like, oh well, he's a great guy. And they're like, well, but Yost is a hero for the other people. How are we going to show that he's a hero to them? It's like, he's at a restaurant. Everyone claps for him. Everyone claps for him, and they cheer and they give him pats on the back. And it's like, wait, I see what you're doing, but I see what you're doing.
Well, yeah, because then when Gary Bertier, the team captain, after they won one of the big games, everyone is very happy for him, and they want to show them how much he means to them. So they all line up in the street and they applaud for him. Oh, and then at the end, when they win the championship game and Coach Boone returns home, Everyone is clapping for him. Oh.
It's just something. And you mentioned the soundtrack, and it's like I give partial points to this movie for just like taking some of the best soul music that's ever been made and just putting it in a movie. Like, of course, it's awesome. But then all of the composed stuff made me upset because it's the kind of stuff where it's like, isn't this inspirational?
Well,
so here's the swell of, and I'm like, please stop doing this to me.
Well, if I may just get a quick thing in there, the composer, one of the many similarities between this film and Coach Carter, the composer of all the orchestral stuff is the same guy that did Coach Carter.
No way.
Well, that makes sense, but I mean, really, like my note regarding the soundtrack is soundtrack pretty standard for sports movie. Like it's like when you're doing a movie like that, there's certain things that you just kind of do to help move the story along, right? Which is why I liked and why the soul music and the kind of period stuff stuck out to me, because it was a departure from your general sports movie stuff and kind of played more into the actual themes of the movie and like set us more in the time period. I thought, anyways.
In an effort to piss Jack off more. So that song, it's called, I think, like Titan's Glory or something like that is what he entitled that, like da 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 thing. It was played after Obama accepted the Democratic nomination in 2008. It was played after he won the presidency. It was played for the New York Yankees when they won the 2009 World Series. It was played when I think the Mets changed out of their stadium and they had all their old like veteran players do a last lap around the bases. It was played for that. It was NBC uses it for their Olympics coverage every year since this movie came out. So it's now ingrained as, I guess, all these like music selectors for these important moments all go to this one piece of music now.
I'm not surprised. Like, I kind of figured that this was a movie that determined what inspirational music was going to sound like for the next couple decades. So I wondered, if that would be the case. So I am not surprised to hear that. That doesn't mean that it's not still annoying.
I actually have no idea what song you guys are talking about. I'm not.
Well, anytime that there is like a Hail Mary pass or like a really big play, listen to the soundtrack, listen to what the music that's playing, and it's the same like da dum 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 dum.
Oh, all right,
kind of thing.
Yeah. As opposed to, we didn't talk about this, the music in Clash is actually really cool and original. It's like this like apocalyptica style music where it's like kind of rock and roll but done with like cellos.
Yeah, Ramin Djawadi, the same guy who did Game of Thrones
and like Westworld and stuff.
Westworld theme, yeah.
Yeah, so it's for me, like I found that stuff super cool. Like I thought the music actually, in terms of originality and stuff like that, was more than just like taking the good soul songs and some inspirational hoopla.
Well, there was actually like a bit of blending of two periods, just kind of in the overall tone of Clash, right? Like the visuals were very standard kind of Greek mythology, but then the way that it was shot and the soundtrack definitely felt a little more contemporary. Even just like all the shaky handheld stuff they did during all the fight scenes. I mean, I know how much you loved it, Jack, but they really, I mean, it was shot kind of like a contemporary action film at times.
Yeah. Poorly.
There was some good stuff in there. I'll
have to take your word for it.
Yeah.
I watched it twice, Jack.
You did watch. I'm sorry. You are the authority on the matter.
I'm the resident Clash expert for anybody listening at home.
In comparison, what do people think of the way that the filming of the arguable fights of Remember the Titans, of like the football scenes?
I did not follow any football play in that film. I had no idea what was happening on the field at any point in time, except for the last play when I realized they faked them out with what they thought was going to be a long pass, and then did a running play instead. That's the only time I understood what was happening.
There was
like a double lateral or double reversal or whatever it's called. Yeah.
There was a lot of moments where I felt like I was watching the first Transformers during those football plays, where I just fucking had no clue who was on what team and where the ball was and who was supposed to be doing what. I mean, I didn't even realize that Rev was the quarterback really until they swapped him out for Sunshine. I was totally unclear. I mean, I thought that similar to when we were watching Coach Carter, I thought that it was impressive the way the plays were choreographed because there was a lot of movement happening and that was very clean. But in terms of the way it was edited, it was far too quick. So I couldn't. Yeah. I only knew it was happening when a touchdown had happened or when they had blocked a play, like the very final moment where you're supposed to understand that like they did what they're supposed to do. But the actual play itself, I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah, they often just depicted football as people tackling each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, which played into what we were talking about before, the fact that I couldn't stop thinking about how dangerous this freaking game is.
Yeah, that it's like, oh, there's a part of this sport that actually should be appreciated for its finesse and for its skill. And it's like, well, according to this movie, it's like how big smashy you make other guy bad. You know, like it was...
Yeah, although I don't know how much finesse there actually really is in football to be like that is kind of the sport of football as I understand it. There is finesse in terms of like being able to run and deke and throw a ball, but a lot of it is just like the violence of war on a battlefield, right?
Yeah.
Recreation of Viking shield wall tactics on a football pitch.
Yeah.
And like the playmaking is supposed to be the big art of it. Right? Like in
outthinking, it's like chess but physical.
Yeah, and with like complex plays and moving parts and stuff. So, but like this movie didn't allow me to like understand or appreciate that stuff.
No, but again, I mean, what I kind of liked about this movie was that it seemed to have less to do with the sport of football and more to do with how football was, or like what I almost said Coach Carter, what Boone was doing for the players. Right, like it was more about the racial issues of the time and how Boone was helping them face that part of it through football than the game of football itself. Yeah, which I appreciated, especially when he has that speech with Yost. It was Yost, right?
Yeah.
After Yost gives Petey the spot on the defensive line, and Boone is like, "You think you're doing these kids a favor by patronizing them, but you're actually crippling them for life by not letting them just face failure and adversity because the world doesn't give a fuck about what they do." I mean, it was a Disney movie, so I think he said "give a damn" or something like that.
Oh no,
but
I think
there were some hoots.
The R-rated version. So
was that a joke? True? I'm not sure. Was there an R-rated version?
Yeah, that was a joke.
There was at least one time in this movie when someone was like, "Why should I give a hoot about?" It was actually one of those scenes, like it was the conversation between Julius. And his counterpart, Gary.
Yeah,
Gary
Gary.
Something. Julius and Gary. That Julius is like, so why should I give a hoot about the team? And it's like, give a hoot.
I mean,
someone's giving hoots.
The hoot, notwithstanding, that was an amazing scene. That scene was so good, and that relationship between Gary and Julius, it's
the heart of the movie.
Yep.
It had me gripped the whole time. I was just like in tears in the scene where Julius goes and sees Gary in the hospital room.
Yeah.
And then he goes to see his mom, and his mom is just like, don't. I forget what she says to him in the waiting room, but just like the fact that his mom, who's like terrified of him to begin with, now brings Julius in as like her other son, and well,
she's like he only wants to see you. And don't, you have to be strong for him and don't cry. Your tears won't make my son walk again.
Even now I'm getting goosebumps. It was so
great.
It was so well done.
After like they're one of their last games in the movie, Gary, the white friend of these two friends that bond together, gets hit by a car, kind of being dumb, and he's celebrating in his car in a dumb way. So he gets in a car accident and he's crippled from the waist down. So it's this tragic real thing that happened.
And then I thought, because at the end it goes over like wherever went in their lives, and I thought he would have died in 1981 from complications of his injury, but no, he was hit by a drunk driver. That guy is like
the
run of
worst
luck with
luck.
Cars. Holy shit.
Yeah. Woof.
Yeah. Brutal. I'm just going through my notes, and I want to talk very briefly about the moment during the North Virginia game at the very end when they're making their comeback, and Gary just runs over to the coach of the other team very quickly and just like angrily points at him and doesn't say a word. And then they just have a slow push in close up of the coach's face as he looks intimidated. And that's the entire shot. And I was like, what the hell? What was that? That was like a cut they missed.
I want to know what the casting notice for all of these other coaches was, because I'm pretty sure it involves like must be a part of an Aryan race society, must have a copy of Mein Kampf on their bookshelf, must.
The casting of the racists was really good.
Yeah.
I bought it.
Yeah. It was thoroughly uncomfortable for most of the movie.
And if you, on that note though, if you actually notice in the credits, it is a little funny in this movie that like it's about coming together, and in the credits lower down there's like Black Kid 1, Black Kid 2.
Shut up.
White girl, yeah. Because it's like, it's about race. You have to cast people racially appropriate to reflect that. It's like you're doing Hairspray or something. So, but it still looks like, oh, God. No, don't do it.
Oh, God. I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah, it didn't have to be in the credit score. You could have made those characters student 1, student 2. Like, you didn't have to.
Yeah. So I was really confused as to what an All-American was, and I knew it had something vaguely to do with sports. And then Aaron was like, "Oh, well, it means like a white person, because America's all about like an All-American." And I looked up the definition, and like as a noun, it means an amateur athlete who is considered like the best at their position in a certain area. So Gary was announced as an All-American, whatever position he was.
Right.
But then the adjective definitions of it are members of American society that like possess qualities and characteristics that are considered like culturally American. And then you go into the rabbit hole of how coded that is, and how it is just a word for like white person. Yeah.
Like represents the heart of American ideals.
Yeah. Like hard work, pervasiveness, courage, and like
commitment to God.
Yeah.
Oh God, barf.
Yeah.
Just slippery slope.
I hate
like
Americans.
And what's a shotgun play? What's a shotgun play?
I think that's I'm gonna guess without looking it up. I'm pretty sure it's when the quarterback receives the ball from a distance, so it's thrown to them as opposed to receiving it directly from the player. So it's more like it's shot out to them.
Right. So they're running a bunch of shotgun plays.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
That final game.
Yeah. So yeah, they were shooting the ball back to him. Essentially, they were like treating it as their default, setup. So that's why he's like, "Who do they think they are?" Then he's like, "The New York Jets." A team notorious for their ability to play football very well.
Also, can we just? I was unclear. Maybe we can touch on this a little bit as to the whole scene with Sunshine kissing Gary in the locker room. Was the implication supposed to be that he was gay, or was it that he was just trying to like assert his dominance in a new locker room? Because I wasn't really sure. They never really allude to it again, which I kind of appreciated, and I kind of liked the Sunshine character for being this person who just like showed up and did whatever he wanted and didn't really give a fuck.
Yeah.
But I also wasn't clear, and I wasn't sure if I had like missed something or if that was kind of the point.
I think that's why they have that scene with him and Petey.
Oh right, when he's like, why does it matter then if you don't care?
Exactly. So essentially, Petey would be like the audience in that scene, being like, "So, but like, are you though?" And he's like, "What does it matter?" And he's like, "No, it doesn't matter, but like, I gotta know." And he's like, "Oh, what does it matter? Why do you gotta know?" Like, and that's I think kind of answering any question that we would have. It's like, wait, but is he? And he's like, the whole point is that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, but he did also like forcibly kiss someone. Like he can't be doing that.
Yeah,
people.
it was assault.
Well, and then they almost get into a fight, and the next time we see the two of them interact, he's like, "Are we cool?" And Gary's like, "Yeah, man, we're cool." And I was like, "When did that get fixed? When was that?"
Look, it's a Disney film. People are friends now. What do you want? What do you want?
That's true.
I'd like to get a live shot of what that town looks like now, because they paint like racism as having been solved in that town by the end of this film, which is a little problematic. I don't believe that any town in Virginia has that harmonious of a relationship between its communities right now.
No. And that's again, that's part of my gripe with like the Disneyness of the film, is that it's like, it's nice to look at it, but like it's kind of problematic when a movie is like, remember when we fixed this back in the 70s?
Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
I think that is probably part of the reason why I forgot about the racial aspects of this film, because by the end everything's better. All the issues are solved. They will never have racism again. Everyone will live harmoniously. And so as a 10-year-old Sean, I probably was like, oh, that's great. I don't have to worry about fighting that anymore, or like thinking about that in any way, shape, or form. It's solved. Yeah. That movie told me that.
And there's nothing that, not that it has to, like, not that we need another image of like brutalized Black people in our media, but there's nothing that really conveys like the danger that Black people were and are in these situations. It was like, people said mean things and they couldn't get some jobs. Like it doesn't quite.
They alluded to it. I mean, there was the brick through the window thing, and then there was that really kind of uncomfortable interaction between Julius and that police officer, where even though the cop was trying to praise him, just the energy in Julius's body. I mean, that, even though that was supposed to be a positive interaction, I still felt disgusted throughout, because even then there was that there's the energy of, I have power over this person coming off of the cop.
Which was Julius being terrified.
So I mean, yeah. So there, but you're right. There were like very small glimpses into the actual gravity of the situation for Black people in that community now, like then and now.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's based off of historical things. Like I wouldn't have been happy if they made something up to try and make a point. You know what I mean? But so like the climactic sad thing that happens is that Gary gets crippled. You know what I mean? Not that like someone gets attacked in Virginia, which would have maybe driven the point home more. But like, again, I wouldn't be in favor of making it up for the sake of a movie. I don't think that's okay either. I'm not saying I have the answer here. I'm just saying like, the movie's a bit too peachy keen for the issue a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was Disney's way of trying to introduce these themes to a young audience, right? I mean, what you're asking for is like the David Lynch directed version of this movie.
Yes, the Coach Carter version. Wait, that was
MTV. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's hard to discuss the movie too much, because it's cleanly done. You watch it and like you see the football stuff maybe now, but the movie really is about the racial stuff, and for the most part it's done well, and it like makes you feel like hopeful, and it makes you feel warm inside, and it makes you like want to fight like these people fought for like a better, more inclusive future.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the point of it, right? They're not trying to do a Saturday Night Fever approach, I think, where they try to show the gritty reality of the lives of these people. They're trying to show the hopeful version of it, where you understand that we're all human and we can all live together harmoniously, and there is nothing really separating us except our own preconceived notions and perceptions, right?
Yeah.
And we can accomplish greater things together when we get over these prejudices. This movie is about as close as you can get to an anti-Saturday Night Fever.
And I realize now the joke I should have made was, you're looking for the director of Saturday Night Fever to direct.
Denzel Washington does way more disco in it.
Yeah. Which I'm sure he's great at. I'm sure Denzel Washington is an amazing disco dancer.
Shout out to him also in this movie. He's awesome. No surprises.
Oh yeah, nailed.
I mean,
everything.
when is he not awesome? But like the way that he just commands every scene is really something to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the performances in this movie were overall like really good. Like again,
Yeah.
like,
except for a few like random racists off the top, who say their lines with such verve and vim, you know.
My favorite was the first two people you ever actually see speak on screen in this film is a cop and a store owner who are arguing over like during the riots.
Right.
And the cop is like, "Get out of here! You've caused enough trouble." And the guy's like, "You're in my store!" And that's the entire shot. And it's just these two like non-actors who have this like 2-second bit. And it starts, and I'm like, "Oh God, I hope that's not the rest of this movie because I'm in for a shitstorm if it is."
If anyone has anything they'd like to toss in now, feel free to toss. Otherwise, we can go off to more capitalism.
I do. Did anybody else feel in Clash of the Titans like Perseus's dad's wife was way too young and attractive to be with him?
I mean, it's Hollywood, baby.
Wow, that's really prejudicial of you, Daniel.
Is it?
Why can't Peter Postlethwaite have a beautiful wife?
He can, but he was like 70 in that film, and she was, I think, maybe 30.
Well, can I also, on a similar note, give a shout out to the Hound from Game of Thrones, who is in this movie for a hot second.
Can I also give a shout out to the guy from 300 who plays Leonidas's right-hand man in 300? He's in Clash for all of like 15 seconds. And it's just two close-up cutaways to him reacting to someone dying. One is a close-up of him being like, "No!" right before Perseus's actual dad gets struck by lightning by Zeus. And the second time at the end of the movie when the cult leader is trying to attack Andromeda. Right. And again, it's almost the same cuts back to him, and he's just like, "No!" And then he dies because the Kraken's stone hand falls on them. Right. And I thought it was hilarious because he's an actor. He's like a name actor in Hollywood, and he has essentially one word in the entire film. And like,
but the movie is full of that. It also has what's his face who wanted to do the Hobbit movies as Apollo. I always forget that guy's name. But
I didn't recognize Apollo from anywhere. But it's true. It seems
really?
like every. Yeah, no.
He's like a name now. He was in all the Anyway, doesn't matter. But
no, it does matter.
It doesn't. But I also want to give a shout out to how these movies, like positive and negatives, they're like almost entirely about dudes. You know, just going to throw that perspective out there. My girlfriend noticed the one line from Andromeda's Maid where she's like, "Wait," like for some reason. And I had a feeling that in Clash of the Titans, there were like a bunch of scenes from Argos that got cut. I think there were a number of scenes. I think Andromeda was supposed to have some like check-ins with her throughout the movie, and I think they all got cut just to continue the adventure, is my guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought it was really interesting that they had just like the token one white woman with like this band of warriors in Clash who just like seems to get whiter. I can't stress that enough. And yeah, like Andromeda, like even just the Andromeda's character, she was supposed to be like the brave kind of like strong one in this film, and she gets like zero screen time really. Yeah,
she's supposed to be a great character in the mythology.
Well, she's Perseus's wife in mythology, right?
Yeah, she's like the wife of the anyway.
Yeah,
but then there's like
fair point.
All right, here we go. Let's
take a break. Buy this thing or don't. I don't give a shit.
Will you be an angel for a helpless animal? Hi, I'm Sarah McLaughlin, and I'd like to talk to you about Sean. For years now, Sean has had to walk every day to the grocery store or liquor store, upwards of 500 meters each way, just to buy some beer. For only the cost of a 6-pack a day, plus the cost of shipping. you can help sustain his unhealthy habits and ensure he never leaves his apartment again. Call within the next 30 minutes and you'll receive a t-shirt and an aggressive, drunken voicemail from Sean himself. Right now, you have the opportunity to enable an artist in need. Would you want to be sober right now?
All right, everyone, welcome back once more. So we are going to jump into now our comparative aspect of the show. We're going to talk about now between these 5 categories that we have completely made up. How do these movies stack up against each other? So our 5 categories that we go with is, do they look good? How does it look? Does it sound good? You know, that could be music, sound editing, ADR, whatever. The acting, was it good? The story, was it good? And finally, the important thing is rewatchability. Like, if you had 2 of these 2 movies, which one would you watch again? So, first of all, let's talk about the looks. In terms of, like, if you just watch this movie without sound or something like that, which one do you think won of the 2?
I think that for me, the clear-cut winner here is definitely Clash. I think that Remember the Titans. I mean, maybe more kind of traditionally, professionally shot, very kind of clean, crisp cinematography. It has a kind of nice, soft, kind of buttery texture to it. It has a Hollywood movie vibe. But I thought the visuals and the stuff they did with Clash was just more fun to look at. I mean, I'm a sucker for fantasy films. Like, for me, Clash is like the best kind of B movie where you can kind of like jump in and out of it and you don't really miss any steps if you kind of like zone out. And it's kind of like the perfect background noise movie.
That's your shit, man. That's your jam.
That's my jam. That's my jam. If I can play it in the background while I do other stuff, that's a hit for me.
Ooh.
And this is it, because no matter what, like no matter what you're looking at, no matter what frame of the movie it is, something exciting or visually fun is happening on screen, and it's not the same for Remember the Titans.
I hear you. Clash. Remember this was one that I was really not sure of. Some of these I had ideas of which ones I felt in favor of, because Remember the Titans, of course, has like the story that gets to you. You know, like, it has these characters, it has moments, it has other strengths, but like visually, it is just a movie. And like we talked about like the football scenes, it doesn't even do that well, and it is a football movie. Like, Clash is the one that leaves me with memorable images, and that's such an important thing for me. Like of some of the design of that movie is so brilliant.
Well, I also just want
is so thorough.
I also just want to point out that Clash of the Titans not only has gigantic scorpions, it also has a naked winged Liam Neeson's butt. Yeah. And like, those 2 things for me, if there was nothing else in the movie, that would be enough for me.
And so, I'm gonna agree with both of you. Clash was just overwhelmingly easier to look at, and if you're just going from that perspective, the graphics largely were not obtrusive. The makeup was great. The sets were phenomenal. It looked good, and there were scenes in Remember the Titans where I just could not see anything that I wanted to see. So, point goes to Clash for me.
I think so.
Yes.
Like, just again, the design choices. The Djinn looked cool. The Scorpions looked great. The city looked great. The design of the Kraken was interesting. Like, it was just, the Pegasus looked real, and like I bought it.
I mean, that was definitely a horse. That was for sure a real horse.
So I think that's a clear point.
Yes,
clear point.
yes, guys.
One of 5 for Clash. Oh my god,
guys, I'm feeling good about this week. I've been pushing for the schlock movie to come out on top for weeks now, and I'm feeling good. I don't
know after that though.
It might turn differently.
But I'll be the first to jump in terms of the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Fucking my argument again is for Clash. They had original music. I fucking dug it. They had it was like the rock and roll done with like cellos and strings. I thought it was cool. It's not just taking good music. You can't just have.
But Jack,
come on.
No, I'm giving the point to Remember the Titans because as we were gonna touch on this, but we haven't yet. Whoever mixed the levels on Clash of the Titans needs to never be hired in Hollywood or anything for sound mixing ever again. The man whoever it is a monster and needs to be ashamed of himself. I couldn't put the remote down.
I never had that problem.
Remember the Titans had that too. Remember the Titans also did that. I was also changing my levels on my TV with I was.
Jack, I think there might just be a problem with your television. I think you might need to adjust some speed because I didn't have that issue with either one of these movies. I don't know what you guys are talking about. While I was watching my very legal versions of both these films, I incredibly legal streams. I did not have any issues with volume or levels at all. So I don't know what you guys are talking about. But that being said, I mean, Jack, I hear you. I just think you're wrong. I think that definitely that Remember the Titans just had a better soundtrack. The thing with Clash of the Titans is that it had kind of original rock music and like not your typical stuff you'd see in a movie like that, but it didn't stand out to me. And Remember the Titans has Ain't No Mountain High Enough, which again, like I'm an easy man to please. And if you have like one song that I can jam to on repeat, that's going to be it. So
I think that's rough. I think Clash of the Titans had what I consider, I was surprised at the originality of the score.
Yeah. If it wasn't for that bad sound mixer who must be taken out to a high rock and thrown from the rock, it would have won, but sadly he destroyed its chances.
Oh man, that's rough skis.
So I think that sounds like a point for Remember the Titans.
I'm disappointed that it does, but it does.
I don't know if I think I should have I just had a whole thing about how I'm rooting for Clash and then I'd fuck it. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Just like Ain't No Mountain High Enough, that's good enough for me.
Well, I'm gonna throw things back towards your way, Daniel, and for the acting, I'm giving it to Clash.
Holy
really,
Sean? What is wrong with you?
Yeah. See,
it's the enjoyability I had.
What are you talking about?
I love watching Denzel Washington do Denzel Washington things. It's fantastic.
Oh my God.
And Ryan Gosling be a gawky little white boy was fantastic.
Yeah.
However,
and Julius and Gary, they were really great together.
I mean, okay, so maybe I started off Clash with Pete. It starts with Peter Postlethwaite, and I just love everything that man does. So it set me up on this really great path where, like, the cheese I was so down for. That's what they were supposed to be doing in this film, and I think they just nailed it.
I'll go last because I'm actually pretty torn on this. So you come back to me.
Oh
Jack.
no, okay. Well, I'm Remember the Titans all the way. As much as I could take things, like glean things, like the focal character of Clash of the Titans is terrible. Sam Worthington, like, I don't know how many minus points you want to give this in your brain, but it's a lot. Meanwhile, the performance of young Hayden Panettiere, or Panettiere, or whatever, how you pronounce it.
I like Panettiere. She sounds like a chef.
Panettiere. She like brings up the point rating alone. So many of them. Like, I know Sam Postlethwaite. You know, it's great that he was there. Peter Postlethwaite, but like, there's just no way. Like, in terms of which was like the higher quality of acting.
Yeah.
Like, no way.
Okay, Daniel, whatever you choose, you lose a friend. So
I know. It's just about which one of you I actually like more. I don't. I mean, I don't know. You both, because I'm torn because of the points that you both made. I mean, like, objectively, I think the acting was probably better in Remember the Titans, but that is also in part due to the material. It's more dramatic. It's more kind of straight, naturalistic material and dialogue. But if I'm judging based on whose performances did I enjoy more, I'd probably have to give it to Clash. I mean, Clash, like, you're right. The enjoyability is an important factor, and like, the characters are kind of more fun, and they're just as heavy hitting in Clash. So,
But we're talking about the acting, though.
I know.
We're not talking about the story. Like Dan.
I know.
Sam Worthington.
Oh, he was so bad.
You're going to give a point to Sam Worthington, is what you're about to do right now.
You're going to give a point to Sam Worthington, is what you're going to do right now.
Like, you'll never work in this industry again if you give a point to Sam Worthington and not to Denzel right now. It's
Sam Worthington was in Avatar, okay, and Terminator Genesis,
the good one.
The good one. I mean,
make a choice.
He was.
I think that the actor in me has to be fair and give it to Remember the Titans.
Okay. Yes, good.
I think it has to. I mean, it's just the acting by and large was definitely better in that movie.
Yeah, in your face, Sean.
And like a young, scrawny, charming Ryan Gosling. Like, how can you go wrong?
That's fine. You're dead to me. But
I miss him. That's fine. I don't care about you. But yeah, Ryan Gosling, if you're listening, lose some of that muscle mass and come back to me.
He's listening.
Yeah, he's from Toronto.
Story.
So, but actually, before we launch into that, where are we now? We're two for Remember and one for Clash?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So we're going into story. Okay, Sean, you know what? Why don't you actually no. I feel like you and I are going to have pretty controversial opinions here. So Jack, why don't you go? Because I think I know which way you're leaning.
So for my opinions, like I said, I am a fan of Greek mythology, so I actually don't like this kind of adaptation of it, is how I feel about it. I find, like, there are certain things that, like, I enjoy little things about it, but I can't get past, like, the stupidity of that Medusa training scene. Like, I just, like, I can't literally, like, think past that point in the movie. So it's just tough for me. Whereas, like, the story is everything of Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of what you think of the acting or the music or whatever, the soundtrack, like, that movie is its story. So I'm Remember the Titans for this one.
Yeah, I gotta go with Jack as well. Like,
yeah,
the Clash story. The Clash story was
so disappointed.
I'm so disappointed. Yeah, because you're not wrong. Yeah,
the Clash story is a hideous mess from start to finish. There's no coherence of storyline or plot. It's just
let's not go too far. There, it's like strung together enough poorly. That. Yeah, but like there's some cause and effect. Someone says go here, and then they go to that there. Place, and it's a story.
It's lazy and it's loose. Yeah, but it's there, and then someone also fixes it for him. But like there is a sequence of events. It's technically a story.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. So my point goes to Remember.
Yeah, mine too. God,
did you want to say Clash, Dan?
Like with all of my being. I wanted to say Clash.
Well, it doesn't matter. You can say it.
No, I can't because I have to be honest and fair because these scores are really important to the future of cinema. Yeah. And I just so badly one week I want the fucking schlocky movie to win. Just 1 week. I'm dying for it. I thought this might be the week.
But this last, I know, and that's kind of settles it. But this last point, I'm still curious though. Like, if you had to, and I feel like you two might have other opinions here, which movie would you watch again?
Clash.
I already watched it twice. And that isn't the first and second time I've seen this movie. I remember, like, this is my background movie of choice. If it's on Netflix, I will just that's my go-to for if I have any other thing to do in the house at all. That's playing in the background.
I am actually excited for Grapes of Wrath versus Wrath of the Titans because I get to watch Wrath of the Titans and get more of this Titan in my life.
And you've never seen Wrath of the Titans?
I have not. I'm excited.
Okay. I mean, you shouldn't be, if I'm being fair.
Well, then I'm super excited. I would, for me, it's so funny because, like, Sean, you're the one who watched Remember the Titans so many times growing up. I would probably rewatch Remember the Titans over Clash. I just found Clash just devolves. Like, it just doesn't. I don't care about the main person, and so I don't care about the movie.
Why don't you learn to have some fun, Jack?
I'm fun. I liked Battlefield Earth, and it's dumb.
That's true. That movie was very dumb.
Horrible.
Okay, well, I think we unfortunately
But that's
know.
3-2. That's close.
Tight. It's tight.
So it's three out of 5 categories. Remember the Titans.
I was.
So we have to declare it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly declare it. That means it is this week the Citizen Kane of the two. So the great movie stands. Yeah, everyone clap for it so we know that it's the hero. Good. Thanks, Disney. Go ahead.
Shit.
It was close. It was close.
It was close.
Yeah, in my scores from our old system, before we changed the scoring system, I was 1 point off between the films.
What?
Really? Oh, see, if we had to score it the way we used to, it would have been like miles apart, I think, for me.
Oh man. Well, that was a tight one. That was closer than I thought. I didn't realize how much you two were gonna like totally love Clash of the Titans.
Oh yeah.
I had such a good time. This was the first week where I've actually had fun during the entire homework process of this podcast.
Yeah.
But like, did you like the look of the gods and like their glowing armor and stuff?
I thought it was super cheesy, but I was into it. I mean, I thought that Zeus's glowing armor was like a little much.
I loved it.
But everything else I thought it was done pretty well. I loved Hades' outfit. I didn't really understand how it worked when he broke off into 7 flying demons. I wasn't sure how, like, because there was sometimes where some demons were getting attacked and some weren't, and I wasn't sure how that was actually affecting Hades as a whole. Just the mechanics of it was weird to me.
What about how they had to go into the underworld to get to Medusa, and then they get to her cave, and it's like outdoors, and it's.
I thought about that too. I was like, yeah, this looks exactly like where they just were. I don't understand.
And then he just flies out of the underworld, I guess, on the Pegasus. Like, they're just like, fuck this, end of the movie. Here we go.
Yeah, and exactly also,
I didn't even clock the fact that like, how did his beast father get down there too?
Hey, fuck everything, huh?
Yeah, who knows? Who cares?
Hey, stop thinking. Look, they're hitting each other. He's doing flips now.
Yeah.
But it also, yeah, the whole thing with Medusa and having her lair be at like the very end of the underworld and having the story being that like other people have tried to go there. I didn't get it. But honestly, I didn't care. I loved the whole movie. I thought it was a bunch of fun.
I'm just glad that we didn't let the acting point go to that movie. That's all I care about in terms of the whole thing.
It was close though, man. It was tough.
It was not.
It was close. Mads Mikkelsen was at his best. The Hound was great, as was Sir Davos.
The Hound for his 3 minutes of...
The Hound with his long-ass braid and, like, shaved sides. He looked fantastic. Nicholas Hoult was doing his, like, meekest performance yet, and I thought it was amazing. I thought Liam Neeson brought it. I thought that Ralph Fiennes was, there.
Still looking for Harry Potter.
You were still and to answer your question from earlier, Harry Potter, the first one was in 2001, so he was like well into the Voldemort character by the time he came to this
that's
film.
what I thought. I was listening to him and like when he's like went to see like Perseus's not daddy or whatever the guy is, and I just expect him to be like, Harry Potter, I need him alive. And I was like, oh, okay.
He did do that voice with when he was being subservient to Zeus in that first scene, where he walks in and like there's no tactical shifts. It's just like, why don't you do this? And Zeus is like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the scene.
and then he pets his face, which I thought was an odd choice.
It's a weird movie, guys.
Well, I guess we could be talking about these movies for eons and eons, but maybe we should throw our Thanos teasers in now.
Yeah. Okay, just do it.
Yeah, I think we should just do it. Jack, why don't you explain to our viewing audience what we do here?
Oh, I'd love to. So this is just a fun thing. It's like the chief part of our podcast is over. This is just our like kind of signature fun sign off. As an homage to all the times in the Marvel Universe that they would tease the upcoming appearance of Thanos. It's a fun thing we have to do when we watch a movie together. When the credits roll, we wonder what the post-credit Thanos teaser would be for that specific movie. So that's what we're going to do now for these two movies.
I've come to really love this part of the podcast, by the way. I just want to tell you guys, when you first proposed it, I was really nervous about it, but this is like my favorite part now. So I just want to tell you guys. Yeah. Who wants to go first?
You, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. My ideas are kind of half-baked on this one, but I'll give it a shot.
I think it's kind of fun when almost that we just like, even if one person has an idea and we just try and flesh it out, that's just as good. So what's your kernel of an idea?
Okay, so my kernel of an idea for Remember the Titans is the credits fade out. Oh, people should know that I have a filmmaking background, so all of my descriptions are written as though they would be in a script, so just bear with me. So I have credits fade out as we fade in on a dimly lit coach's office that we haven't seen before. We see slow panning shots of trophies and newspaper clippings lining the walls, and then we hear a phone ring. Close up on the phone as we see a hand draped in the Infinity Gauntlet reach in and grab the phone. From behind, we see a man, we think is a man, with an enormously wide back, wearing a black windbreaker and sports cap, talking on the phone as we hear a muffled voice through the phone say that Boone is retiring and the spot for head coach of the Titans has opened up. And then we have an extreme close-up on Thanos' face as we see a single teardrop roll down his cheek. That's it. Just credits.
I like it. I think mine for that film would be it's next season. You get the header the next season, and Boone's out there with some of the players we know and a batch of new junior players who are in, and they're playing Racist High, the crosstown rival school, but the opponent team has this running back who's just a beast. He's throwing people off, and he's taking the ball, scoring touchdowns on them, just dominating them. And just Denzel Washington goes, "Who's that new player? I've never seen him before." And slowly zooms in on him as he's in the huddle ready to go, and you just see those classic pearly whites with some purple lips behind the helmet.
Nice.
I don't. That's really good. First of all, I like the pearly whites. Like just like small reveals of Thanos is a fun idea to play with, because I wondered if there was something in the I think there's a part in Remember the Titans when he's like, I don't care if you're black, white, purple, or green, and if Thanos is like, what do you mean purple? Or if there's also something where like a big catch is made and it's just like the football flying in the end zone and the hand reaches up and it's the Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah. And that's and cut to black. I don't know what sets it up. Yeah. But those are just images that I like. So fantastic. If those can somehow be a part of the same post-credit trailer, that's my vote.
Great. I love when you come prepared, Jack.
Yeah. I was hoping you might flesh it out, but it's okay. Your ideas were better.
It sounds like you can kind of tack that on to Sean's idea for a full scene. Hello? Anybody?
I think to tack it on to Sean's idea that a big catch is made, and then the question of who's that player. Yeah. All right. Pearly whites. I dig it.
So for Clash, anyone want to jump in with their Thanos and Clash?
I mean, I'll go because I kind of have a half-written thing here. So generally, I won't even read what I wrote because I'm still trying to kind of flesh it out. But I imagine the final credit kind of scrolls up the screen, and then hard cut to a sweeping landscape shot of Olympus. And it's kind of like a drone shot that brings us closer and closer, and eventually through the gates of Mount Olympus itself, where the gods actually reside. And then we push in further still into the actual hall of the gods, where they all stand in a circle and converse. And as we're kind of approaching the door of the hall, we hear muffled voices talking, and it kind of sounds like we're hearing the end of an interview. And then we push in, and the doors kind of open as a camera goes in to reveal over someone's shoulder, we see Poseidon sitting at a desk, kind of breaking the news to a man in a suit that there's really no more spots available for Gods on Olympus, and and maybe get a couple more things on your resume and then come back.
Thanos is always in a suit.
Well, and for some reason I couldn't get away this week from Thanos just like applying for jobs.
That's great.
So that's my whole thing, and it's basically like, to me, this is kind of the inciting incident because it happened like 2,000 years ago that set Thanos on his path for like world like destruction through the universe because he was so slighted by not being allowed to be a Greek god.
He's like, things on my resume.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Like a practical experience, eh?
Yeah.
Good. I like that. I don't really have anything. I'm having a really hard time making him not like making an interesting addition of the Marvel universe into this, because our Marvel universe pretty much is just our own like Greek mythology that we've created over the past 50 years. So he just is a Greek god already.
Yeah. I you know what? I had a really tough time, even like for the same reason, trying to think of a way to kind of place Thanos in this world because they are so similar.
Mm-hmm.
So I just tried to think of like the funniest thing that would happen, and that was Thanos not getting a job.
But I think what I kind of, because like the godliness of him, so I had this idea of like the movie had resolved and it like cuts back to post credits and it's like back in Zeus's like big throne room, like the column like throne room of his that has all the sculptures that represent little humans and stuff. And it's kind of Zeus, and he's looking at like Hades, who's like, I don't know, in the underworld or something like that. And then it pans out like really far off of Earth, like up into a whole other like upper like godly sphere. And it's Thanos sitting up there, and he has little figurines of like Zeus and Hades and stuff.
Oh,
and he picks up he picks up the Hades one and it like dissolves in front of him, and he's like, I guess I'll come back in a few thousand years or something like that. Like, I'll see where this goes later.
Yeah.
Or like the acting was rough. But the soundtrack, you gotta dig the sound. He essentially makes my points from the podcast. Is what I imagine.
Yeah.
I kind of also like the idea of him having the statue of Hades, and then just like wiping the hair away, and then suddenly he realizes Hades died, so he like crafts him into Voldemort.
Oh shit! Oh no!
Yeah. Don't want to waste this.
Or just like him reenacting scenes from the movie with his figurines. So he has like a little Liam Neeson, and he's like, "Yeah, and then you make baby."
It's a Qui-Gon Jinn doll that he's just put. Like,
you
just like actual action figures.
And then like he comes back and it's like, "Wait, you're not me," and he's like, "Ha ha."
That's so funny. What you're describing is the South Park version of Thanos.
Yeah.
Correct. That's what I'd like to see.
Oh, that's good. I like that one.
Well, shall I reveal our choices for next week's episode?
Yeah, I think just for like structural context, each week one of us gets to decide the competition for the following podcast. So I'm nervous, but this week it's Mr. Sean Jacklin who gets to choose.
We've thrown ideas around, but we don't know what's coming.
So
can we have a drum roll? Can we have a drum roll?
Yeah. Can you put a drum roll effect in post?
In post. Can you edit that in post?
Yeah. All right. Just have a break for it.
And drum roll.
Perfect.
Our classic film next week will be the thrilling, I guess it's a whodunit, All the President's Men.
Oh my God.
That's the movie that I was trying to think of before, the Robert Redford one.
Yeah. And it will be going up against one of the doofiest movies of the last 15 years, Olympus Has Fallen.
Yes. There it is.
Yes.
Oh, good.
I'm going to write that one down and
then
kill myself.
Yeah.
Olympus Has Fallen versus All the President's Men.
All the President's Men.
I mean, that's I as much as I want to argue that, I think that's a close enough thread that we can make that work.
I think we're going to be surprised with how I think it's going to be a tight match between, like we had this week, where the absurdity of one movie pulls it closer to the quality of the other.
Wait, is Olympus Has Fallen the one No, the one with Channing Tatum.
Yeah,
where Jamie Foxx is the
White House
president.
Down.
White House Down. Right.
Yeah.
Let's never watch that. Oh, unless we do White House Down versus Watership Down.
That's good.
Oh my God. The possibilities are endless.
The possibilities.
The possibilities.
All right. Well, I think that that just about wraps it up. Unless anyone else has anything to add.
Nah, that's it.
Yeah, that was good. Well, that was fun. Until next time, Jack, why don't you play us out?
Citizen Kane. Versus.